Hi all, this is Stephanie from Spinsters in the Making, and I am back for the number 27 Earnest block. And today I'm doing 3 of these blocks because I got a little behind. So we're starting off with number 27 and I'll go all the way up through 29, and hopefully I'll have those all uploaded by the end of the day. So for the 9-inch block, you're going to need 2 4.5-inch squares of your background, 2 3.5-inch squares, and 1 2.5-inch square for your background fabric. And then for your print fabric, you're going to need 2 4.5-inch squares, 1 2.5-inch square, and 2 2-inch squares. Now with your A and D fabric, which are your 4.5-inch squares, you actually are going to cut them on the diagonal 2 times to get triangles, and then you're going to lay them out like this piece here. So you're going to be sewing on these lines to connect these two, and then on this line to connect these two, and you are going to get 4 total out of all these cuts. So I'm going to sew those, iron them, and then come back to you, and this is with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Alright, so I have sewn these 2 pieces together. Make sure that your print is diagonal from your backgrounds as well. And then you're going to take these, fold them over, make sure to get a nice seam right in here, make sure they're nice and sandwiched together. So with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, here, 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 and here, and that will complete our 4 blocks. And then you can trim off your extra tabs at the end. And after that, we will go with our C and E fabrics, which should be this one right here with a line drawn across it, and that will be your 2.5-inch blocks then. Alright, so I have finished my 4 blocks that look like hourglasses, and I've trimmed off the little edges. Also on the back, I originally pressed to my print side so that way I could get a good sandwich here, and then when I sewed them on the long edge, I did with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and then I also pressed those seams open so that they lie a little flatter. So now we're moving on to our C and E fabric, which is our 2.5-inch squares. And I've already drawn a line on the diagonal on my background fabric, and we're going to sandwich the good sides together. So with a 1/4 inch seam allowance on both sides of that line, cut in the middle, and then press towards your print side. And then these will get trimmed down to 2-inch blocks. So you'll have 2 of those at the end of that. Alright, so I have my 2-inch blocks that I've trimmed down, and they're 2 inches. And now we can take our F fabric, which is our other 2-inch print squares, and we are going to have our background fabric pointed in diagonally to each other, and then put our 2 F blocks on either side like this. And then we will sew here and here with 1/4 inch seam allowance, press those to your print side, and then sew along here. And I'll come back to you when that full block is finished. Alright, so I have finished sewing my centerpiece together. You can see it has my backgrounds in the middle, and then the rest are my prints. And now we can start actually laying out our block. So we're going to take our background squares that we have left over. There should be 4 of them. And you're going to put those into the corner areas of your block, like this. And you can take your center. You want to make sure that your backgrounds are going diagonal from each other in this direction. And then for your hourglasses, you want to make sure that your prints are going to be lining up and hitting the sides of your background blocks. This. And this is what our finished block will look like once we sew it together. So sew these 3 panels together this way, and then I will sew those panels together with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I will come back to you when I have sewn these 3 strips together, and then we will continue by sewing the 3 main strips together to form the full block. Alright, so I have sewn my 3 strips together, and I've pressed, for the center strip, I've pressed in towards my center block, and then for these top and bottom strips, I've pressed out towards my background blocks. So now what we can do is we can fold this over, so with a 1/4 inch seam allowance here, press it open, and then take this one, fold it up. So with a 1/4 inch seam allowance here, press it open, and then the block will be complete. So I'll come back to you when I've done that. Alright, so this is the final block for the number 27 Earnest block for the Sewcialites quilt along. For the back, I pressed open on these larger seams, and then on top of these strips I pressed towards my background blocks, and in the center I pressed in towards my middle block to make sure I had nice sandwiches here and here, all these points. But overall, it's kind of a cute block. Hopefully this tutorial helped you. If it did, please like and subscribe so I can bring more material to you, and I'll see you next time.